This is not about kindness, this is about control. You search for how to manipulate people. You clicked because you want influence, power, respect, maybe even fear. And Machiavelli, he didn't just teach this, he mastered it. If you've ever felt ignored, overtalked, underestimated, if people don't take you seriously, if they walk over your words and get away with it, then you're not weak, you're just untrained. And Machiavelli, he created the rule book on how to flip the power dynamic. This video will teach you how to gain respect without shouting. Make people follow your lead, influence choices without saying a word. You'll understand the real psychology of control, the one people in power use on you every single day. Because here's the truth, good people lose when they don't know. How the game works, Machiavelli didn't believe in fairness. He believed in results. People are easy to control if you know how they think. Still believe manipulation is wrong? That's exactly why others control you. This isn't about turning you into a villain. It's about waking you up. You can stay powerless, or you can learn to see behind the curtain. The first lesson, never let them know you're playing. Let's begin. Most people think power looks like shouting, aggression, or dominance. But Machiavelli knew better. He wrote, "A prince must learn how not to be good, because in the real world power wears a mask. It smiles, it listens, it pretends to care, but underneath, it calculates." Machiavelli's first lesson in control is simple. If people don't fear you, make sure they never suspect you. Let that sink in, because your biggest power play is invisibility. Look at the world today. The real manipulators, they don't bark orders. They influence decisions quietly. They position themselves as helpers, friends, even victims. And that's exactly what makes them dangerous, because people don't resist what they don't recognize. Think about your own life. That coworker who always agrees with your ideas, but somehow always gets the credit. The partner who never yells, never argues, but makes you feel like everything's your fault. The nice guy who's always helpful until you stop doing what he wants. They're not loud, they're not aggressive, they're effective. And that's the trick Machiavelli wanted you to learn. He believed that to control people, you don't have to dominate them. You just have to make them feel like they're in control. The moment someone trusts you blindly, you own their perception. And when you own perception, you own behavior. This is why being good is dangerous if it's your only strategy. Good people are predictable. They follow the rules, they hesitate to lie, and most importantly, they assume others do the same. But Machiavelli taught that the world doesn't run on goodness, it runs on appearances. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. So here's your first strategy. Act kind, appear harmless, let people drop their guard, and then control the game from the inside, because once people trust your mask, you no longer need force. You only need influence. It's why some of the most powerful people in history rose not by crushing their enemies, but by disarming them with charm. They weren't the loudest, they were the most calculated, and that's where real control begins. So the next time you want to influence someone, don't argue, don't push, don't prove, just smile, nod, listen, let them underestimate you, because the more they trust your mask, the more power you gain behind it. But what happens when the mask slips? What if someone sees through the act? That's where the second rule comes in. Control what they feel more than what they see. And once you control emotions, logic disappears. In the next section, we go deeper, because now that they trust you, it's time to use fear, guilt, and desire to steer their choices without them realizing. Let's continue. What happens when people start to see through your mask? Simple. You don't hide anymore. You redirect. You shift their focus away from your actions and toward their own emotions. Because as Machiavelli knew, men are driven by two things, fear and love. And when used right, those two forces make people voluntarily hand over control. Let's break it down. Once someone trusts you, they don't question your intent. That's your opening. You don't need to force them. You just need to guide what they feel. And the best way to do that? Make them feel something so strongly They forget to think. Fear, guilt, desire, validation. These aren't just emotions, they're tools, they're weapons, they're strings you pull from the shadows. Let's say you want someone to obey without resistance. Do you demand it? No, you make them fear loss. You hint at what they'll miss. You build a scenario where not listening to you feels dangerous, and you let their own imagination do the rest, because fear doesn't need to be loud, it just needs to be personal. Now take guilt. Instead of saying, "You owe me," you say, "I only helped because I believed in you." That sentence is soft, but the blade is hidden inside. Suddenly, they don't want to disappoint you. They feel like they owe you. And the moment someone feels like they're in debt, they follow quietly. Desire is even more powerful. You don't push people toward what you want. You paint it as what they want. Let them chase it. Let them believe it was their idea. All you did was support them. That's the art of control. It doesn't look like control. It looks like support, like understanding, like love. But underneath, it's design. It's manipulation. It's power, because once you can shape what they feel, you don't need to fight for influence. You own it. Now, why does this work so well? Because most people don't know what they're feeling, and they definitely don't know why they're doing what they're doing. They think they're making choices, but they're reacting to invisible triggers, your triggers. That's why this rule is crucial. Control emotions, shape outcomes, stay invisible. Machiavelli didn't just want you to win, he wanted you to win without being blamed. And this is how you do it. But here's the real twist. What if someone else is already doing this to you? What if you're the one being emotionally manipulated right now? Would you even see it? In the next section, we go deeper into the darkest tactic of all, how the illusion of choice becomes the ultimate cage. You won't want to miss this. There's a pattern to how people manipulate others, and once you start to see it, you begin to ask a terrifying question. How do you protect yourself from someone who's always 3 steps ahead? The answer, you don't. Unless you become what they can't predict. Machiavelli understood this better than anyone. He didn't want you to be just powerful, he wanted you to be untouchable. And the best way to stay untouchable, break the pattern. When people think they understand you, they plan for you. They anticipate your reactions. They adjust their behavior to match yours. That's when you're at your weakest, when you're predictable. But the moment you act in ways they don't expect, they freeze. Their calculations break. Their strategies collapse. Their fear rises because unpredictable people are dangerous. They're hard to read, hard to corner, hard to stop. Think about it. The employee who sometimes challenges the boss and sometimes agrees, they're scary. You don't know what side they're on. The friend who disappears when you need them, but then shows up with kindness days later. You keep trying to earn their approval. You chase them. This isn't random behavior. It's designed unpredictability, and it's addictive for the victim. Because when someone doesn't know what to expect, they start acting out of anxiety, not confidence. That's where your power multiplies. Instead of being the steady leader, you become the storm people try to survive. They'll avoid upsetting you. They'll offer favors you didn't ask for. They'll tiptoe around your silence, hoping you'll reward them next time. They're not loyal, they're terrified. But fear disguised as loyalty, that's the kind of control Machiavelli admired most. So how do you use unpredictability? Not by being unstable, but by being strategically inconsistent. Sometimes reward failure. Sometimes punish success. Sometimes agree with a fool in public and destroy a genius in private. Never let them know what version of you they'll get. That confusion creates hesitation, and hesitation is the death of resistance. Now ask yourself this. Who holds more power, the person who is consistent or the one whose next move no one can predict? People fear what they don't understand, and that fear becomes obedience. But here's the problem. Being unpredictable only works when you're also trusted, and that's the paradox Machiavelli thrived on. So how do you make people love you while you're manipulating them? That's where charm becomes your shield. And charm, when faked perfectly, becomes a prison no one wants to leave. We'll unlock that next. Let's be clear about something. The most dangerous people don't scream at you. They smile. They remember your birthday. They ask about your mother. But behind the warmth, there's always a calculation. Machiavelli didn't reject kindness. He embraced it as a tool. He knew that a fake smile could open more doors than a real threat. Why? Because people don't expect betrayal from someone who's nice. They drop their guard. They trust too fast. They forgive too easily. And that's exactly when they lose control, when they believe they're safe. Kindness, in the hands of a manipulator, is a weapon. It creates loyalty without effort. It disarms enemies without confrontation. It makes people defend you even when they shouldn't. You don't need to earn power through fear alone. Sometimes all you need to do is appear harmless, because the moment they believe you're not a threat, that's when you become one. Have you ever noticed how the most manipulative people are often the most charming? It's not a coincidence. They mirror your emotions. They say the right words. They give just enough attention to make you feel seen. But it's never for you. It's for the control they gain. This is why Machiavelli wrote, "It is unnecessary for a prince to have all the good qualities I have enumerated, but it is very necessary to appear to have them." You don't have to be kind. You just have to look like you are, because people follow appearances more than reality. But here's the twist. Even charm has limits. Eventually, someone will see through the mask. So how do you keep control, even when they start questioning your motives? Machiavelli had a brutal answer for that, and it has nothing to do with charm and everything to do with punishment. Next, we reveal the dark secret to maintaining power once people begin to doubt you. Are you sure you're ready for what comes next? What happens when the charm stops working? When people stop being impressed, stop being loyal, start asking questions? That's when most manipulators panic, but Machiavelli didn't. He planned for that moment because he understood something most people refuse to accept. It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Fear isn't about violence. It's about precision. It's about knowing exactly when to act and how much pressure to apply. You don't need to be a tyrant. You just need people to believe that crossing you comes at a cost. Think about how people treat a boss who never enforces rules. They laugh behind their back. They stretch boundaries. They stop listening. Now compare that to a leader who punishes only once, but effectively. They don't need to yell. They don't need to punish again. Their silence becomes a warning. That's Machiavellian fear. Controlled, strategic, unforgettable. The key is consistency in unpredictability. You don't punish out of emotion. You punish to create memory. One betrayal, one calculated consequence. But make sure it's visible. Not messy, not public, just noticeable enough to echo. Here's how fear works in manipulation. It makes people second-guess rebellion. It increases your value through intimidation. It erases resistance by amplifying doubt. People ask themselves, what if I'm next? Was it worth it? What happens if I say no? Fear doesn't just stop action. It shapes behavior before it even happens. But here's the genius of Machiavelli's thinking. He never said only use fear. He said use it after kindness fails. Use it when people start feeling too comfortable, too entitled, too secure in your presence. You must remind them you can be dangerous. It's like thunder after silence. The noise stays longer. The fear lingers. Here's the dark truth Machiavelli understood. If people believe there are no consequences, they'll eventually betray you, so give them a reason not to. And here's the final twist. Sometimes you don't even need to punish anyone. You just need a reputation for punishment. That's the final level of control, when fear travels faster than truth. But now the final question. Once you've gained control, how do you make it last? Because power, once earned, is always at risk of being taken. In the final section, we expose how Machiavelli believed power should be protected, not with strength, but with illusion. You'll never see people the same way again. Are you ready? So, you've gained control, you've charmed, you've instilled fear. But here's the harsh reality. Control is never permanent. People change. Loyalties shift. New threats always rise. That's why Machiavelli didn't just teach how to gain power. He taught how to protect it. Not with armies, not with money, but with illusion. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. Your greatest tool is perception. Make them believe you're confident, even when you're unsure. Make them think you're in control, even when things are falling apart. Let them see only what strengthens your image, because perception creates belief, and belief becomes reality. The secret is simple. Never let them get close enough to see the real you. Guard your weaknesses like secrets. Amplify your strengths like stories. If they believe you are strong, they will act like you are strong. That's the game. Not brute force, not constant action, just careful performance. Power isn't held. It's maintained by watching, adapting, and controlling what others see. And now a question. Have you ever been manipulated without knowing it? Or worse, have you ever used kindness or fear to control someone else? Let me know in the comments. And if you found this glimpse into Machiavelli's dark genius valuable, subscribe, because this is just the beginning. There's more truth coming, more strategy, more uncomfortable power. Because here, we don't just learn about power, we learn how to use it.